Oh, Your Highness, I was just going to, if I may, ask you about when you were in China and you met with Chairman Mao. You
Yes.
said at the time you met a lot of the leadership, the
Yes.
Chinese leadership. You really respected.
Yes. At
What
that
about-
time, the entire leaders, I think central government leader or party leader I met. Oh, I'm very much impressed. These really dedicated, serving for people, particularly working class people, wonderful, wonderful. But then, around 1957, the 100 Flower, that movement. Then, you see, those intellectuals, you see, become also weed survey. Weed, worthwhile to remove. Then gradually, Cultural Revolution. Then they really, I think, very, very destructive period, like that.
And what are your memories, Your Highness, of Chairman Mao himself? Would you tell
Oh,
us?
Mao Zedong himself, very nice. I really admire as one patient and a determined person with Marxist sort of ideology. So then he really carried the public sort of mass movement. And a lot of difficulties he faced, but in spite of these difficulties, his determination, his sort of aim is never sort of shaken. That's very good. And then when I met him, oh, very nice. I really feel great revolutionary. And I met several times. So my relation with Chairman Mao Zedong almost become like relation between father and son. So many occasions, you see, some sort of festival, some sort of luncheon party or dinner party. When Mao Zedong there, he always brought me beside him. So as Chinese tradition, you see from his own sort of plate, you see some food, you see share with your friend. So Chairman Mao do that. So one way I feel quite proud. You see Chairman Mao himself now sharing from his own plate with his chopstick, you see, like that. One way, a little bit fear. Chairman Mao Zedong chain smoking, chain smoking. Oh, quite often, like that. So from his plate and his sort of chopstick, I may got some sort of germs. A little worry. Like that. Oh, very nice, very nice. And then the commander-in-chief of Korean War, Tan Duc-hae. Oh, very straightforward. Not much talk. A few words, but very, very sincere, very straightforward, very dedicated. And Liu Shaoqi, my own boss, also is very nice. Zhou Enlai, his eyes, short moment, he always look like that. So I have not much full respect or full trust. He's too much clever. Like that. So then I really feel, I think pure Marxism, I think much spoiled by Lenin, and then of course Stalin, not much educated, and wartime, I think a little bit stubborn person. So like that. Perhaps Ho Chi Minh may be better, Venom Ho Chi Minh, more nationalistic, like that. And Chairman Mao, originally good, but then later is spoiled by his power, like that. So when I was there, he often say, criticism of Communist Party really necessary. Criticism from self-criticism, because of the self-criticism and also receive criticism from others is very necessary. Without criticism, or like fish without water. So very necessary. But then after 57, that completely changed. Like that. Any criticism to party and become criminal, like that. So then the original beautiful concept or idea spoiled by themselves, mainly due to their power and also ignorance, right? And a totalitarian system. I often, you see, expressing China, 1.3, now I think 3 points, the 3 point of Kasa.
1.3.
Oh,
1.3 billion.
yes, 1.3 billions have every right to know the reality. Once 1.3 billion Chinese people knows the reality, they also have the ability to judge what is right, what is wrong. So therefore, censorship is immoral. Your censorship you cannot carry outside the world, only within the country. So it's actually fooling their own people. So must be sort of free sort of information. It's very important. Nowadays, through technology, you cannot control fully, and also large number of students who study abroad. So therefore, the reality cannot hide completely. So then, this too much censorship is simply losing trust from the public to the party, like that. And then another important thing is, nowadays, you see, the Chinese president very much emphasizes the rule of law. So this is wonderful. So the Chinese judiciary system should promote the international standard of judicial system. That's very important. Otherwise, I met a number of Chinese patients, very poor. Recently, I also met one Chinese factory worker. Their face, also, you see, very poor. And then I inquire, it's in their sort of, I say, conditions. Very difficult, very poor. And particularly the farmers, when I ask them, you see, in their own village, the religious, because the village's leaders, parties or chief, these people, their only concern is money. So their position, their power, used for money, making money. No pay attention about the poor peasants in their own area. So those who peasant, poor peasants, told me, now in their village, nobody take care of them. So very difficult situation. The condition very, very poor. So the judiciary, independent judiciary system. India, although you see some drawbacks here and there, corruption is also there, but basically still rule of law, independent judiciary system. Wonderful, isn't it? Like that. Then?
So, Your Highness, you came into exile in 1959. This, of course, must have been a very painful experience, but even from the first day, it seems you showed tremendous optimism, an extraordinary optimism. What is the basis of this optimism?
Truth, honest. Our aim, something truthful. So we carry this effort with honest, transparent. So nothing hide. So I always describing the struggle between power of truth and the power of gun. Short term, power of gun is much stronger. Long term, power of truth is much, much stronger. So we, right from the beginning, we carry our work, mainly preservation of Tibetan culture. Tibetan rich Buddhist knowledge. I think now today, I think on this planet, I think our knowledge about Nalanda tradition, about Buddhism, I think our knowledge is like a complete form compared other Buddhist countries. Burma, Thailand, Sri Lanka, Cambodia, Laos, these mainly follow of Theravada tradition. Then China, Vietnam, Korea, Japan, Mongolia, these following Nalanda tradition, as well as Tibet. So now, best sort of form or best sort of knowledge through rigorous study, I think available only Tibetan tradition. And then the language also, the best language to describe the Nalanda tradition, Nalanda thought. I think Tibetan language is the best language to describe precisely. Although Buddhism reached China before reached Tibet, I think Tibet only 7th century and mainly 8th century. Buddhism reached China proper, I think 2nd century, 3rd century, like that, much earlier. But then knowledge, you see, our knowledge is much better because we carry at least 20, 30 years rigorous study, root text learned by heart. Then each sort of word, each kasa, that means sentence, verse, each word. You should then explain word by word. And then through debate, you should try to understand the correct meaning precisely, like that. So one my friend, one Japanese, you see, since many years we know each other. So one day he told me, we Japanese Buddhists, we always recite a certain sort of text, but without knowing the meaning. So my explanation about these texts is very, very helpful. He told me like that. So we study word by word, rigorously. So many of these sort of countries recite these things, but without much study, so do not know what the real meaning of that. Yes?
And then in the 1960s, Your Holiness, you said those were very dark years for Tibet. This, of course, the 1960s, the first few years after you came into exile. Of course, in China, the Cultural Revolution came. But even before the Cultural Revolution, there was great destruction in Tibet. Destruction of shrines, destruction of monasteries, destruction of religious texts. And then even today, we see in Syria, we see a similar kind of destruction going on. How do you account for this? It seems like a moment of collective madness where whole populations start to destroy. What is the explanation? What is your explanation of this?
I think it's difficult to precisely. I think different area, maybe some different sort of causes. But overall, I think short-sighted and ignorance. That's I feel. And then totalitarian sort of regimes, like now today, I think like former Soviet Union, immediately after collapse of Soviet Union, I already have some sort of friend among the Soviet sort of officials, and mainly the friends of Gorbachev. So we know quite well each other. So immediately after collapse of Soviet Union, one occasion we met, and then one of my friends told me, nowadays in Russia, in school, about history book, not there, because during the Soviet Union, certain history book is too much distortion. New book based on fact, not yet developed. So therefore, no history book. That is the case of China. During Cultural Revolution, the media full praising Cultural Revolution. Great achievement. Great revolutionary sort of movement. And immediately after the Cultural Revolution, then it's the same sort of source the media say, oh, during Cultural Revolution, you see some achievement there, but also some damage also done. And after some time, then the same sort of source say, during Cultural Revolution, everything is destruction, destructive. So, according policy, you see this information, you see accordingly is mentioned like that. So therefore, you see ignorance, I think key factor, do not know the reality, like that. So like Tibet, I think actually Tibetan, you see, they appreciate there's much sort of constructions and also education. But education, one-sided education. And then construction, just external thing. So the Tibetan loves their own culture, like Han brothers sisters loves their own culture, their own language. Similarly, we Tibetan also loves our own culture, our own language. So some, you see, the policy restriction about Tibetan culture, about Tibetan study, Tibetan language, then you see, it really hurts Tibetan mind, like that. So these, you see, these officials do not know that. And suppose you see the report from the local officials, also you see very much distorted. Therefore, during Huyanfang, when he visit different places, firstly, he sent some of his trusted sort of friend, go this area and analyze the situation. Then received full information. Then official visit come. So before his official come, he already get the real sort of information like that. So he similarly, before he came to Tibet, I think 1980, before he came to Tibet, he sent some trusted his friend. Then he all information he received before he came to Lhasa. So when he reached Lhasa, the local officials, you see some nice sort of report, you see start reporting. Then immediately Huyanfang say, oh, no need, I already have all this information. So then he starts some scolding. The central government spent a lot of money. Where is this money? Whether you see you thrown this money to Kasa, to Kasa, Brahmaputra, like that. So you see these distorted information. So from lower sort of level officials, you see report, distorted report. They believe this kind of report, you see, suitable in their ear, and then accordingly they wrote a report. Then that report was superior. Then finally, the top leaders are full of ignorance. That's sort of the totalitarian system, and too much sort of censorship. This sort of was the negative result. So the free information, and Western Europe or Europe now, the whole Europe, wonderful. And America, wonderful. Completely free. That's very important. Right?
Some people might argue that this destructive behavior on the part of human beings nonetheless shows that human nature itself is finally destructive and not compassionate.
No. There's no. There's some scientists. Some scientists, you see, carry some research. So the other day, I think I mentioned, this morning I mentioned this one. So you know, the infant child, few months old child, is a not yet developed language.
Ouch!
I give him, since he's a long-time friend, so I give him some nickname, Big Nose. So another American, later he became abbot of one important monastic sort of college. So he also using his nose, some special nose, quite thin and very, very long. So I always, whenever I met him, my greetings is first is to touch his nose.
See what I have to put up with.
So touch, you see, nose, a big nose. Then the nose even become bigger like that. So, human nature. Oh, so you see, I also saw, you see, that sort of their report. 2-3 months old baby, not yet developed language. And to that baby, you see, show cartoon. One cartoon, you see, young boy or young children play together. When that infant child, seeing that, smiling. Then another cartoon, 2 children, see, a little bit sort of a negative attitude each other. Showing that cartoon, that infant child feel unhappy. So therefore, basic human nature is more compassionate. When compassionate attitude, see, feel happy. Destructive emotion, harming emotion come, unhappy. So therefore, then most important, more compassionate mind, physical condition, much better. Constant anger, hatred, fear, actually eating our immune system. That's scientific finding. So it's a more compassionate mind, very helpful to sustain our immune system, like that. So these are scientific findings. And then also is our common sense use. Those your neighbor whose family economically may not be very rich, but full of compassion, full of affection in that family, then each one very happy, full of smile. And then one family, a very rich family, was the house and several cars and the furniture, very good, and food, everything, dress, and including diamond kasa, rings, like that. You see, very rich, but in that home, lack of affection, little bit jealousy, distrust. And then, in that family, Even one visitor visit there, when you reach that room, something cool. Those family, economically poor, but full of affection. When you reach there, something warm. Like that. So therefore, it's a basic human nature, according the scientific sort of test or research, and also they are finding about immune system, and also use common sense, which family more happier. So then also our common experience, we all come from our mother. Recently, on BBC report, I heard mother's milk, feeding mother's milk to the child is very essential because, you see, after birth, the child, according to their physical sort of growing, the certain sort of certain materials in the milk also, you see, change, mother's milk. So that very fit the necessity of the child, different month, growing month, their physical also growing. So accordingly need certain sort of chemical. That automatically develop in mother's milk. And cow milk, this is not there. So therefore, feeding mother's milk is very, very important. So these are quite strange, quite mysterious. If you accept Creator, and really, Creator, really wonderful, create that kind of situation like that. So therefore, see, this is our common experience. We all come from our mother. We all received maximum affection. So we all, that experience really absorbed in our blood. So we all, 7 billion human beings, all have the seed of affection. So now through education, you see, nurtured, you see, that sort of seed, then there is a real possibility to develop. So in a way, 1,000 years, including Buddhism, we always pray to Buddha, to God, to Allah. I think, frankly speaking, fail to bring happy humanity. Now through education, through our own effort, you see, we can achieve happy humanity. So then, I think we always say grateful to God. Now one day, God say grateful to His creature. You really make because of the happy world. Like that.
This raises an interesting point, Your Holiness. Although you've said that secular ethics and the practice of compassion does not require religious belief, you yourself practice every day several hours in meditation and training the mind. Do you think that religious belief is, in fact, helpful as a way of helping to be compassionate?
Oh, yes, no doubt. But then, I noticed, you see, many of my Christian friends, oh, really? Their whole life dedicated serving to other people, particularly poor people, like late Mother Teresa, and some other, you see, a Christian practitioner, and also some Muslim. Wonderful. As well as Jews and some Hindus. So all religions really have immense sort of potential to strengthening our, basic human value, compassion. But then the question is, that cannot be universal. So this problem is universal. So the method to solve this problem also should be universally acceptable, or fit universally, like that. And then, particularly, non-believers, large number of non-believers there. We cannot impose. You should believe religion. You should believe this religion, that religion. And that's difficult.
You're now 80 years old, Your Holiness, and yet your schedule of travel would be considered demanding for somebody half your age. You arrived off the aeroplane at 3 o'clock yesterday evening. This morning you were attending a press conference. You've been on the go all day today. You have a full
Now yawning.
a full program in Cambridge tomorrow and the next day,
There's no
and
problem.
then London.
No
Looking around this room, though, Your Highness, I see that people are beginning to, the grey hair is beginning to emerge. What advice do you have for people who are embarking on their?
I don't know. I think firstly, we should be realistic. So, I've become old, and you should accept, now I'm old person. So, you see, physically become old, but mentally, you see, you want to be like a young person, right? Yeah. So, these are unrealistic. And some old people, you see, they pretended, you see, they're still young. I saw, I think a few years ago, one election in the United States, one candidate, although you see, quite old, but he trying to show is very fit. So sometimes you see, mentally, you still, you see, want to be more young and can want to show acting like young person. Then reality cannot. So then you start pretended. Once you see you practice because of pretension, then that gives you more stress, more anxiety. So accept the reality. Last year, I met one German specialist, my niece, and he thoroughly checked. Then he told me, "Oh, your physical condition is very good." But then your niece, then he mentioned, "You are not 18 years old, but 80-year-old person." So you see, this naturally now becoming more difficult, and worse because of your age. I felt that a great teaching. Reminds me, I'm an old person. I must accept, you see, that reality. So, you see, and then like death. You see, we accept it. Death is part of our life. Sooner or later will death come. Sometimes you see people, even, you see, they try to avoid, even use word of death. It's silly. When you see totally unprepared to death, then actual death comes. Much of difficulties. You accept, sooner or later death will come. It's part of our life. Where there is birth, there is death. Automatically come. When the sun rises, sunset, automatically come. Like that. So our life go like that. If once you accept the reality, then actual death come. Well, yes. Now end of life come. It's part of our life. Much easier. What do you think? Same age now, 80-year-old.
I became a philosopher because at the age of 6, my sister told me I'd die. I said, "Don't be ridiculous, that's only for butterflies." And when my mother told me the truth, I became a philosopher. You see, I'm very defective. And I prefer to have your view. I'm trying.
So that I feel is sometimes you see old person pretended as a young person. some adverse thing, some foolish person, they try to show very, very intelligent. Then very difficult. Then talk few sentences, then really shows that foolishness. But he or she still pretends something very sort of smart.
Well, the reality is, Your Holiness, that it's 3:45 now, and our time with you is drawing to a close. On behalf of everybody present, I'd like to thank Your Holiness for joining us here.
Thank you.
Today.
Thank you. Okay. I really appreciate, your effort, and also, you come to see me or to listen. So I very much appreciate. The change, try to the change better world, happier world. Ultimately, it's entirely up to us. We have to make effort. So particularly like famous education institution, Oxford, like this, like here. I think some kind of controller of nerve system. So it's a certain new ideas, it's a certain new thinkings, I think must develop, must start from such sort of famous institution. So I had opportunity to talk, to share. So about concern for well-being of humanity, each of us have the responsibility. I always consider myself as one of the human beings. So as my own share, I try my best make some contribution for well-being of humanity. So you also, each of you, also part of the humanity. So if you come here to see me from another planet, then different thing. If you all, born in this planet, now have to live on this planet and have to die in this planet, I think we all have this common responsibility. Try to make a little contribution for a better world, happier world. Happier world start from individual, not from organization like United Nations or government level. We individual should try to make more compassionate person, then create compassionate family. And then about 100 family, that's community. 1,000 family, 10,000 family. Through that way, happy, the compassionate United Kingdom. Then rest of the whole Europe. Then must extend towards, Africa, like that. So we Asia, from India, have to try to express or try to educate, the concept of secular ethics, ahimsa, mahakaruna, and religious harmony to other countries. That way, in the Asian continent, within the Asian, make some effort to change. And the European continent, within Europe, European people should start some new thinking and make effort. And Africa, similarly. I often telling when I met some African people, some kind of, although the idea, Pan-African, there, now should make effort, like European Union, African Union should start. Then I think many trouble within the African different states, I think will reduce. And then a lot of money save. And then spend. Those poor people. Now, at present, because of the Ethiopia, number of people are facing starvation. So, very sad, very sad. When we think of these things, oh, this happened in our own planet, just our neighbor. We cannot remain indifferently, indifferently. Just as a crying or feeling of sadness won't solve the problem. Make effort with vision, step by step, systematic. So it is possibility our next generation may enjoy happier world. So let us try, make contribution. Start from individual. Sometimes this is something, good things through prayer come from sky or something. That's unrealistic. We must start and change humanity through individual, change through individual. That's the proper way. So old people, now including myself, now almost now time come, say goodbye. So tell our younger generation, we experienced, we witnessed too much violence. All this we created. You see, ultimately on the basis of too much sense of we and they. And that also ultimately sense of I, me, that. Too much self-centered attitude is the ultimate source of these divisions and violence and exploitation and bully, all these things. So altruism, respect all other, same human being, same right. So sense of oneness of humanity, I think very, very important. We can do that, isn't it? Thank you. Good night.